And good evening, everybody. I'm Arthur Kane. Welcome to this Ward 5 candidates debate. This is being sponsored by the Center for Social Entrepreneurship. I am excited to be here tonight. This election is just a few days away, and as voters, you get to decide who your next representative of West Jackson, Ward 5 will be. We'll engage in a very lively discussion coming up on this debate. I want to take this opportunity to go over the rules again. We've had an opportunity to meet with each one of the candidates backstage, but tonight I want to share the ground rules for this debate so that we are all aware. Questions tonight will be ones primarily generated by the moderator, some gathered from online sources, and the host organization. The moderator will introduce each candidate to eliminate time. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. If a rebuttal is necessary, the candidate offering the rebuttal will be given 1 minute. If a candidate wants to offer additional clarity or response to a previously asked question, that response will be calculated within the 2 minutes given for responses. No candidate shall interrupt another candidate. However, the moderator may interrupt any candidate if the moderator believes the candidate is straying from the subject matter. Our timekeeper tonight will raise a yellow paddle at your 30-second mark and a red paddle when it is time for you to stop. If you are in the middle of a sentence, you will be allowed to complete that sentence, but not move to an additional thought. 5 candidates are joining us tonight for this discussion. Charles Tillman is a native of Brookhaven, Mississippi. He earned his bachelor's degree in business education from Alcorn State University and his master's degree in guidance and counseling from the University of Southern California. He also has done postgraduate study at Notre Dame, Atlanta University, North Carolina College, and Jackson State University. Upon the untimely death of the late Honorable Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, Councilman Tillman proudly served as the interim mayor for the city of Jackson. He has also served as president and vice president on many various committees on the city council and across the city of Jackson and beyond. Vernon Hartley is a father of 2 and a grandfather of 1. He is a highly decorated military veteran and retired public servant for the state of Mississippi and city of Jackson. He has a bachelor's degree in community health and human services from the University of Southern Mississippi. He has served as commissioner, vice chair, Jackson Municipal Airport Authority, and currently serves on the nonprofit boards of Keep Jackson Beautiful, the Jackson Association of Neighborhoods, Revitalize Mississippi, and the Pecan Tree Park Neighborhood Association. He has 40 years of state, city, and military service and has lived in West Jackson for the past 22 years. Besides community landscaping, he enjoys carpentry, welding, and his blue tractor. Mr. Ricky Jones is the director of the Small Business Development Center at Jackson State University, vice president of the West Jackson Improvement Association, and a former Jackson Public Schools board member. He is a graduate of the University of Southern Mississippi. Mr. Jones also served as a board member of the Mississippi Black Leadership Institute. He is currently the president of the 100 Black Men of Jackson, graduate of the Mississippi School of Banking, Jackson Association of Neighborhoods, A. Philip Randolph Institute, Jackson Hines Library trustee, Jackson branch of NAACP, and the Zoo Area Progressive Partnership. James Richard Ridgely is a 37-year-old Ward 5 candidate born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. He is a 2002 graduate of Provine High School, a member of the NAACP and UAW, and a local business entrepreneur. In July of 2020, he became Mississippi's and Jackson's first Black-owned hemp farmer by obtaining a license from the USDA. His farmland is in downtown Jackson, where his plans are to be fully in operation by April of 2021. Adam T. Sanders was born the 14th of 19 children in McGehee, Arkansas, to James and Odessa Sanders on April 3rd. On May 10th, 1986, he graduated from McGehee High School. He served 2 years at Fort Gordon, Georgia, in the United States Army and went on to serve 2 more years at Camp Colbert, Korea. After serving 6 years in the military, he moved back to the United States to Houston, Texas. In 2015, Adam finished his Bachelor of Ministry degree from Day Springs University in Dallas, Texas, and in 2017 attended Belhaven University and received his Bachelor of Arts degree in music in May of 2020. Adam is the CEO of Prosperity Records and is married to Dr. Margaret E. Sanders. He is the father of 3 girls. Let's welcome all of our candidates tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'm going to start with Adam, and we'll make our way around, all right? Each candidate gets 2 minutes for this question. Other than serving the public, why do you want to be the city council person for Ward 5, and what makes you qualified for this job? Mr. Sanders.
Yes, I'm excited about working in the community. It's something I've done most of my life as a school teacher and pastor of a church, and I just love serving. I want to see changes made, and I want to be the continued voice of the people. I know it's so important about once you get into politics, many times you can get into yourself, but I think it's about the people being heard, the needs of the people being heard, and I'm looking forward to that, making a difference in some of the things that are going on, is some of the situations that we're having, such as infrastructure. I believe we can come with a plan that's great for this city. As far as crime, things that are happening in our city, a lot of people economically not where they need to be, and of course things such as education. I look forward to that. So because of my background experience of being so connected in the community, in the church, and in the schools, I feel like that makes me a great candidate for this particular position.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Hartley.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, one of my motivations for running is that I know that we can do better. I know that there are opportunities out there. We have the right people. We have the right environment. We have the right houses. We can make Jackson shine. Also, my qualifications includes, for the past 40 years, I've worked and been trained by federal, state, and military to do wastewater, drinking water, to manage solid waste systems, and also I taught leadership across the country, leadership and management for the Air Force. I believe that these skills alone can help me to make the right decisions as a city councilman, to sit on the board, to hear the issues, to have the technical expertise, to be professional in bringing forth the issues of the public. Okay, I believe that those issues are very important to our destiny here in Ward 5. I believe that our children deserve a better space. They deserve schools. They deserve a better future. They deserve to see a better scenery that is encouraging as they go to school. They deserve a lot. Jackson State University is important. We are educating the next generation of our professionals. And as we educate them, they need to understand that we have done our best. And that's what I'm all about, bringing professionalism and integrity to City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. First, I want to thank President Hudson for allowing us to host this event tonight, and as well as the 2 organizations that's putting on this event. My passion and love for Ward 5 is my determining factor for me to look at this position. We have in this ward so many opportunities that have gone unrealized. We have a wonderful and plentiful group of children that need hope, that need to see that that hope can be realized. We have opportunities within the city not only to show the rest of the state, but to lead the way. Every decision made in Jackson for the state of Mississippi happens through Ward 5. We have an opportunity here. My beliefs my goals, my hopes for this time, for right now, is to ensure that we're to push it forward. We have water systems that need to be addressed. We have an educational system that needs to be addressed. We have other financial obligations that we have to make tough decisions on that will need to be addressed. We have organizations that are here to help us, but how we calibrate, how are we working with them to move them forward, allow those organizations to move us forward. We have opportunities that we are not seeing. Most recently, 2 nights ago, it was announced that a $2.5 trillion budget is being announced for infrastructure. How we position ourselves to attract that? Whereas Ricky Jones for Ward 5, we will have that conversation. We will have that discussion. My experience in banking, my experience of working with some of the most elite organizations in the city, mentoring allows me to be in position to work with our youth. And I have the concern because I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 5, born and raised. I am the son of Ward 5. Ricky Jones, April 6th. Council.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Tillman.
Thank you for inviting me. I've lived in Ward 5 since 1965. The only part of Jackson I've ever lived in since being here. I have invested in Ward 5. A huge investment, not just a small investment. That shows that I'm really concerned about Ward 5. I raised my family in Ward 5, educated my child in Ward 5. I love the community and its people. I love people, period. I've been a greater part of Ward 5, which means all of Ward 5. Now, what really qualified me, I'm the only person on this podium that has ever been a city council person. I've been elected by the citizens of Ward 5 3 terms, and I'm asking them to elect me one more time. I have served in, like you mentioned in introduction, I have served in many capacities. I'm now the vice president of the city council. I am the dean of the city council. That was bestowed on me by my colleague because of my leadership.
All right, Mr. Tillman, thank you. Mr. Ridgely.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate y'all having me. I grew up all my life in Ward 5, and I just seen the steady decline over the years. The ward's getting worse and worse. First off, we need to do some more code enforcement with the stores, with the loitering, the combat crime. You could drive around Jackson, and Ward 5 is the only ward that has an issue with people just standing outside the stores. So we need to do something with the store owners, first off. And also with my business experience, being an entrepreneur, I know I can bring some businesses by making the ward look better, from the houses being abandoned. And we just have to fix up the zoo also with updates. Nobody can't even find the zoo because they only advertise. So we need to do something commercially wise with folks even knowing where the zoo is at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ridgely. We appreciate that very much. All right, listen, so it's no secret that we just came out of a water crisis based on the winter storms that happened. It's also no secret that the winter storms happen every single year. This year was a little bit differently because it lasted a long time. If you are elected to represent Ward 5, one of the areas that was seemingly hit extremely hard during this crisis, what would be your plan to fix our infrastructure problems? Mr. Hartley, we'll begin with you.
Okay. First of all, we need to have a backup plan in everything we do. There should be a disaster preparedness manual that includes memorandums of understanding with local municipalities to provide help to us. There should be the backup plan should include businesses and churches and organizations, how we reach out to ensure that our elderly folks have proper drinking water. But the infrastructure issue is a long-term issue, granted. With our potholes, we should have a team that goes out and fix the potholes, okay? Ready deployment type team. We should also have markers all over. With the water crisis, however, we need to make sure that we are working from day one with other agencies that are responsible and that can respond. We need to have a working relationship, regular quarterly meetings with the governor's office. We need to go to Washington, ensure that we're getting everything we can to upgrade our water system. That's critical. We should not have to make the evening news for several days, national news. That's a killer for our businesses, potential businesses, and residents. There's a lot we can do, but it includes protecting our communities, protecting our elders and our children. It also includes working long-term, early, constantly, getting relationships together, working through state, working with the governor's office, working with our congressional delegation, and it also includes making sure that community leaders are apprised of every step.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hartley. Mr. Jones.
Thank you so much. First, we will implement plan to ensure that in the short term, when a situation has arisen during this ice storm, won't happen. We need reserves in terms of water to ensure that everyone is able to have access to water. We already have plans in place that have basically done every study and ran every type of informational piece in terms of our pipes and everything that are underground. We need to start implementing that. We need to start working on ways that we can actually start getting some shovels in the ground and start replacing these pipes. We also need to look at it from a health perspective. We need to ensure that those in this ward that find themselves not having access to health care, access to proper nutrition, et cetera, we have already pathways already built. One thing I do know is the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency is in downtown Jackson. How's that conversation going? How do we work together as a city council piece on the legislative side to start putting in policies to ensure that we're having these conversations? How do we calibrate or work with the mayor to ensure that he's at the forefront of what we have? Because again now, we're talking about our families. Because again, in my house, when we have to make sure we have water, whether it's on or not, that's something that has to be done. And so we have to ensure that we put those types of efforts first to ensure that our infrastructure is put in place because our children have to get to school, as well as they have to brush their teeth before they go to school. We have elderly that needs to make sure that they have medicine taken. How do we make sure that happens? We start thinking ahead and being proactive. And so we have to start looking at the things that we already have on the plate. We have to take a deep look into ensuring that we are working with those that make decisions that are able to allocate the dollars for the city of Jackson. And that's what Ricky Jones would do as your city councilman for Ward 5.
Mr. Jones, thank you. Mr. Tillman.
Number one, I would continue to do what I've just started. Having a plan with people already in place just in case there is a another water situation, that they'll be ready to come to Jackson. Number two, you have to have the right leadership at the table. I'm not talking about just from Ward 5. I'm talking about from the mayor, each ward. You got to have that team that's willing to truly work together. Everybody can't be the mayor. Everybody shouldn't be the mayor. But everybody should understand their role when it comes to the council's responsibility, the mayor's responsibility, and the overall team responsibility for the city and its constituents. Third, continue to advocate and lobby the state of Mississippi, the county, and the federal government for assistance. Ladies and gentlemen, downtown Jackson, you have city government, you have county government.
So, Mr. Tillman, I want to redirect you to the question because you've strayed. The question is, and you only have 30 seconds to complete your answer, the question is about the water crisis that we just went through, right? How do you fix that? How do you repair a failing infrastructure?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, the relationship between all these government entities because they all are part of the city of Jackson. And they should have a major role in being a partnership to fix it. We need money. We need partnerships.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Ridgely, I'm going to get your name right
Okay.
at some point.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I believe we need some water towers for storage in the areas that's furthest away from the plant. So, and also put in a plan, a real plan, because this happens so often, not even with the ice storm, we be having water issues. And second of all, upgrade the plant, because the main thing I heard was the water on the outside kept freezing. So some kind of covering out there if we can't just build a new plant right now. And the one of the main things I kept hearing was everybody had excuses and no results. So we can't have both. We gotta have the results. You can't have the excuses without the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, I certainly agree. Water towers. Again, I believe we can come up with a graduated plan where we can repair our water system as far as the plant and how clean our water is. In other words, I believe we can do it a little bit at a time, maybe a certain area or something over a number of years. We know that our water system is old and our infrastructure is old. But I believe we can target a certain area or a certain number of streets for repiping or what have you so that our water can be clean, so it can be good for the citizens. And I certainly agree that there should be some type of storage or something along with that plan so we don't have to look for people to come and bring water to Mississippi and it becomes so bad that, you know, nationally we have to be seen like that. But I just believe there's a good plan that we can put together and it's already in place rather than have something. So I believe, me, Adam Sanders, I believe that I would be the best councilman to help to revitalize this system.
All right, thank you very much. So we've heard relationships matter, leadership matters. We should petition the state. We've heard about the need for additional water towers. The question, and we've heard what you think you would do if you were in this position. The question now, though, is based on what happened, right? Based on what happened, do you think the citizens in Ward 5 were failed based on what happened during this crisis? Mr. Jones.
Yes, I would have to say that because I'm one of those citizens. This is not a situation that we can take lightly. We have to realize that our roles as elected officials, our roles as leaders in this city, and particularly in this ward, that is our responsibility to ensure that our citizens are taken care of. There should have been some concurrent planning going on. We know that there's a big picture in terms of how it's going to take to get there, but ultimately we have to put stopgaps in for those issues that come up. We have to make sure that we have the priorities put in place, and that takes a collective effort. How will we work as a council, as a team, to ensure that we're putting in legislation to assist the administrator, the mayor's office, to be able to carry out those duties for our citizens? Understand something. We have children. We have elderly. We have working families in this ward. And there should be certain things that they should not have to face for an extended period of time. And it's our responsibility, my responsibility as your councilman, to ensure that we are working to put those things in place day one. We have to put our priorities back to where they need to be. In other words, we have to make sure this jewel, Ward 5, is calibrated with the rest of the city to push forward. We have a university here, comprehensive research institution. Students are coming here to improve and grow. It's unheard of for a school to be shut down for that amount of time. We have other facilities here in our ward where we have elderly stations. We have to make sure that we are putting forth the priorities and put concurrent planning in place to make sure that we meet those efforts for our citizens. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Tillman, that's a heavy question. Since you're the current sitting councilman, do you think the citizens of Ward 5 were failed during this crisis?
The citizens of Ward 5 were failed. The system has been a failure for years and continue to be a failure until we fix it. And that's been an ongoing. When I first went to the council, everybody talk about infrastructure. The old pipe. We need money. Like my daddy had the answer. He said, we need bukus of money. You've heard those terms.
Yes, sir.
And until we get the finance support, we're going to be in the same situation. I don't care how much we dream. We don't have all kinds of infrastructure studies. We know what the problem is. Everybody know what the problem is. No ifs and ands about that. And we're gonna fail every time it's a free until we fix it, also, and citizens. So let's all lobby our federal officials, our state officials, where we send all Jackson, Mississippi, send more taxes to the state than any other city, municipality. We send more tax money to the federal system than any other municipality. Because what? We're the largest. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Ridgely.
Yes, most definitely. Ward 5 was failed during it. All you had to do was look online or on the TV. Every other councilman, when it first hit, was out doing some kind of water drive or relief. We did our own, but it would have been nice to see current leadership out there also with the others. You know, we just had a water drive for Ward 5, I think, last week. I mean, we got water everywhere now. So it'll be nice. We need somebody, leadership, not sleep at the helm. It's time.
All right, Mr. Ridgely, thank you
Let me
very
rebuttal.
Offer about a 1 minute rebuttal.
We have had water at Metro Center more than any other area in the city of Jackson, constantly. So we've had water.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, Ward 5, certainly, I'm sure there was a feeling of failure, but as being said, we do have to do more preparation and have our systems better. I still think there's a plan that we can do that to improve for our city because water is so vital to us. We can do without a lot of things, but water is very important, and I intend to put a plan together and have others that would help us to implement that plan. And it was like interesting when the state did finally step in, and of course the state, we in this state, goes without saying, and looks like people would step up before that, you know, rather than pointing fingers at one another. But it's those things right there that's going to really make a difference. So I think our state has to take a greater part in that. And so I feel like I'd be better for Ward 5.
All right, thank you,
Adam Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Hartman.
Yes, earlier you had mentioned some other factors involved, including leadership and so forth. I'd like to put forth also the technical expertise. We have to understand what the contracts are saying. We have to understand the capabilities of those contractors. It's no need to get in millions and millions of dollars if we don't know where it's going to go and if it's not going to result in positive responses or results. Another thing, to answer the question, yes, but a major failure of the response. We should anticipate always, have that backup plan, start building that storage tower now so that we're not caught off guard. Have locations around the city where we can stockpile water so we can rapidly get it out to the seniors and other folks that can't get around. Those things, because if we don't, we have a public health crisis. People's lives are in jeopardy. And it's up to me as a responsible leader, city councilman, to make sure that I protect those people, that I have a plan to not only to where the water is going to be, but how to get it into each community, how to get it distributed. Those things are important. Those are questions that must be answered. I led a team of 27 different agencies to protect the Pearl River. Engineers and scientists for 5 years. I was the lead coordinator for the Pearl River drainage system. I know about water quality. In the 80s, I was testing water down on the coast. And also in the 80s, I was teaching wastewater treatment in Germany. I know about water quality. And I think with me as your city councilman, you'll have the technical expertise to ensure the proper distribution of money.
All right, very good. You did answer that question, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll move to Mr. Tillman taking a stab at this question. This question is actually from someone on Facebook who is a citizen or resident in Ward 5, Mark Harper. What are your plans to improve the area around the zoo?
That's an excellent question. We've already started the plan with the payment of Capitol Street. We've just approved that contract. It's been let. And the second thing, we have set aside funds to remove about 200 plus dilapidated houses, clean it up around there. We had the reinterest program was part of it, where we fixed up some houses, and we had some government money for veterans in that area to get some money to fix up their home, and we have investors. Ward 5 now, especially West Jackson. Investors are looking to buy property, but my thing is, we better own these properties. Don't we gonna be the losers? That's when I put out keeping you informed, so we know exactly what properties are available, and we the people, we should own. Those of us who love and live in Ward 5 should own it, not somebody else, and then we started complaining about they don't care who they put in there. So that's my thing. Invest in what you love, and that's West Jackson. Thank you.
Boy, have you made an investment in West Jackson. You
Yes,
own a lot
sir.
of property, right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ridgely.
First off, with the zoo, I actually stay a block away from the zoo. You can't wait to a problem of every election time to come around and do little fix up or band-aids around the zoo. The zoo needs to be updated. Like, the zoo is boring. It's 2021. We need to bring some more activities to the zoo. They sit on 80+ acres, and the new thing now is like the petting zoos where you ride through. We need to utilize that, make where you can go up, touch some animals, use the pond, the lake out there, some water activities for people, and advertise the zoo. You don't even know how to get there from the interstates. So we're just updating the zoo, clean up the area around it, and just update it. It just look bad.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, definitely more investment, and investors should be encouraged to take part in the zoo, in the area that's near the zoo. Of course, as well houses should be torn down and other communities created among that. More signs, I would certainly agree with that. And I would certainly agree that it could be a lot more attractive. I look at places like Disney World as kind of like what he said, that it's very attractive. You see a lot of advertisement, many people know. And I think churches could do a little bit more. Myself being a pastor of the church, I think we can take more of an investment into that. One thing I would do, would put a committee together to encourage churches to become more involved in the zoo area and the things of the zoo, because that is the only zoo we have. Well, that is the largest zoo that we have in the state. So people should not only know about, just some things, but they should know about the zoo that we have for our children. Our children are growing, and they should be excited. I remember when I was a child, I used to be excited to go to the zoo. That was one great excitement of mine. So I think we can revitalize that. So Ward 5 would be my area to help improve that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Hartley.
Okay, the zoo is near and dear to my heart, but all of Capitol Street is. I've worked with nonprofit agencies. Within the last 6 months, on 2 occasions, we picked up nearly 200 bags of litter on the 1-mile stretch from I-220 to the zoo. I also noted during that time, when I was out, there are abandoned houses on the on the side of the gateway to our zoo. Abandoned houses on the major thoroughfare coming down the entrance on Capitol Street. We got to do better than that. Some of those properties are grown up. Some of those properties have houses that need to be torn down. It doesn't present a good image to folks to encourage people to come to the zoo. Not at all. Also, in the early 2000s, I noticed the blight, a lot of blight started over there around Capitol Street, along some of those streets named by states. And it went further down. That was left unchecked and is still continued to decline. Blight not only affecting that area over by Road of Remembrance, but it also coming down from Capitol Street down to St. Charles and coming down towards Robertson Street. We have to put a hold on the blight in that area. We have to ensure, as your city councilman, I will ensure that we have funding, proper funding to go to solid waste, code enforcement, Parks and Recs, or whoever keeping up the roadway. We have to have that proper funding going to those organizations because, again, the zoo is a treasure and we have to maintain it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Harley, thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. The zoo is near and dear to me. I earned my fishing badge to Boy Scouts out there at the lake there. There's a threefold piece there. First, the city has to change its priorities as it relates to the zoo. We need to see the zoo as an asset and as an attraction for tourists coming in. With that said, we need to work with our code enforcement to advocate for increasing code enforcement officers to go out and ensure those properties are put in place. Next thing is we need to talk to our local HUD office to see about what programs are out there for building and sustained housing. Secondly, we will get with our economic development team to look at what business can benefit from a clustering. In other words, businesses building up on businesses to come into that area to show that there is progression over there. The other piece there is, and for the next space, is looking at the educational aspect of the zoo. We have 50-something schools in Jackson at some point. We need to have a place for our children to grow and learn, see it in real time. Because again, we can only Zoom so much. They need to walk and get close and personal with these types of items. Again, from a tourist standpoint, we are attracting dollars from other parts of the region here. How are we being ready and prepared for that? The other space there is we have opportunity zones. How have we begun to talk to our local investment houses about looking at individuals coming in to invest in that space over there and working to improve not only the Capitol Street corridor, but as well as that whole space going into downtown. We have to take advantage of the ingress and egresses in terms of coming to our city. We have to start thinking in a way that we can position our families and our communities in a way that we are prideful. Ricky Jones, bring back pride to Ward 5.
All right, Mr. Jones. Mr. Tillman.
Hey, brother. We're all talking about the zoo. Where were we when they were trying to move the zoo? They were going to move the zoo. Where were we? Charles Tillman was there. Charles Tillman was real vocal about it, still vocal about it. That's the only thing that stopped it. Now, when we were asking for people to come to the rally downtown, I believe it was together in Jackson, where were you people? You're talking loud and about it now, but when we needed you, where were you? Where are you now? Picking up paper and not going to get it. That's part of your job, keep Jackson beautiful. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tillman, thank you very much for that. So we have a lot of questions centered around blight, abandoned property in West Jackson. So we'll hover in this area just a little while longer. I want to move from the zoo to the Metro Center and the Highway 80 corridor that once was a lifeline to this city, and now it is a gateway to leave the city. At one point, the city talked about a Grand Gulf fund to really redo the Metro Center. There were several people on the council that voted against it, Mr. Tillman included. I wonder what your thoughts are about fully revamping and revitalizing the Metro Center and bringing Highway 80 back to its heyday as a means of economic development for the city. Mr. Sanders, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, that's definitely part of my platform as well, to revitalize it, to see, we see where billions of dollars have been spent downtown, different small cities around who've got a lot of retail in, and I would love to see that. People used to come for miles and miles just to come to Jackson. I'm from Arkansas, and people drive 100 and something miles just to come to Jackson to the Metro Center Mall. So it would be great to see that revitalized. There's a lot of space there and so many opportunity and jobs, even progress for economic growth that would be great. As a matter of fact, when I came to Mississippi, my first job was at the Metro Center Mall. So it would be so good to see that revitalized and come together. So that would be one of the main things on my agenda, providing I'm elected city councilman.
So, Mr. Sanders, I want to give you an opportunity to dig a little deeper and be a little bit more specific about what you would do to bring the Metro Center Mall back to life and the Highway 80 corridor. So not just a dream, not just something abstract, but something specific.
Okay. Well, good question. I would certainly encourage, we would certainly try to attract those businesses, those retail, like dealers that was there in Sears and some of the other stores, and try to come up with a plan that would convince them that would be good for them to reinvest in other places that was there, like McDonald's that was torn down. McDonald's is normally around any major, something like that. So that would be the main part of my plan, that we would help to revitalize the whole Highway 80 area.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hartley.
Yes, first I'd like to go back and address something that Mr. Tillman said.
Noted that this would be a part of your 2 minutes.
I understand.
Okay.
Keep Jackson Beautiful is a nonprofit organization. It's not a function of the city. When you're out there, when we ask folks to come out on their own time, they are volunteers. I am a volunteer, but I am doing something that is the responsibility of the city to have done. Where's the money that's going for the litter crews to actually pick up that stuff? There's a failure there by our paid folks to do their job. Not the volunteers. Volunteers step forward and get it done because it needs to get done. Secondly, you mentioned the Metro Center. A lot of our businesses won't come until we get our crime under control. Specifically, my platform revolves around the community. First of all, stabilizing each community by removing the trash and the garbage and abandoned properties and restoring the communities and upgrading them so folks will stop leaving and more people will come in. Once more people come in, then we have a steady line of customers to go to the Metro Center. We can open up more businesses along the Highway 80 corridor. But it all starts with getting people in their residence, getting people in the communities, and getting crime under control. Because if we don't do that, then everything else won't work. We have to stop folks from making that tough decision to leave Jackson, and we have to keep our environment up that allows folks to want to move in, and businesses will follow.
All right, Mr. Hartley, thank you very much. Mr. Tillman has a rebuttal, and then we'll come back.
I agree. Keep Jackson Beautiful.
Your rebuttal is 1 minute.
It's private, but the city of Jackson supports. We give them $40,000 each year. So Keep Jackson Beautiful could go to any toaster store and get on their bus and tell them who they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They use Miracles students to help them, which is good, but they don't have the right plan to do the job.
All right, Mr. Tillman, thank you very much. Mr. Jones will redirect the question about the Metro Center, revitalizing that and restoring the Highway 80 corridor.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. The Metro Center is a jewel. We see not too many communities of the size of Jackson, and the ward size of Ward 5 has a piece of retail space of that size and that square footage. What I will do is pull together resource partners to include bankers, to include urban planning development here at Jackson State, as well as with the other schools within the city, and as well as CPAs to come up with a game plan to assist the current owner to follow and see where they are with their plan. The other piece there is we will see what other strategic plans are going on. I believe the Central Mississippi Planning Development District has a 40-year plan they're putting together. Where are we as a city in the midst of that plan? How are we strategically positioning an asset such as the Metro Center to be a part of that strategic plan? How do we then tie into other priorities that's within the Mississippi Development Authority to ensure that we have the access to one, exposure, two, financing, and three, with our delegation from a federal side to tie into that space to ensure it's getting the necessary support it needs. I will then work with our council to calibrate, get on the same page. From there, we will work with the mayor to get on the same page with that. Because again, we're talking about a large space that has huge potential. We've already seen a model of one space such as that, such as the Jackson Medical Mall, that's doing exceedingly well. Now let's move that same priorities to the Metro Center. And within that, the perception of what is not capable will be realized because, one, we have calibrated ourselves, positioned ourselves to use the resources that we have to make something amazing, something great happen. We cannot be getting our own self way. We cannot put excuses ahead of making money.
All right.
Ricky Jones, Ward 5.
Mr. Jones, thank you. Mr. Tillman, question for you.
That sounds good. The city of Jackson, in the past, we have hired consultants. We have hired a marketing firm to look at the Metro Center. And we got economic people who on Facebook or whatever, all the time trying to expose the Metro around the world to investors. It's not that we're sitting there. Each time Metro Center would come up for sale, I put it in keeping you informed. So this community knew each and every time it was for sale. And all the investors around know it's for sale. So it's not that easy. You got to have big time money. Now it has been, since I've been on the council, it's been sold 3 times. And every time I had hopes and dreams that we had the right investor gonna move it. All of them coming with this nice talk like my friend, what they gonna do and lay out this. Well, once they get in there, it flattens out. So it's gonna take some big-time investor or either some partnership to move that piece of property.
All right, and just
even we had some minority investors out there. You know who I'm talking about?
Retro Metro, yes.
Right, Retro Metro. We was all excited. We got some black people gonna move this place, and they get to a point as black people. Leroy Walker said, "Tim, they just won't let us have the money."
All right. So I want to stay with you, Mr. Tillman, give you an opportunity to drill down just a little bit to talk about your responsibility as a council person for the Metro Center and for Highway 80. And you voted against the Grand Gulf allocating money from the Grand Gulf Fund to revitalize Highway 80 and the Metro Center. Do you take responsibility for the dismal state that that area is in?
No. I've done my part we've had a comprehensive plan developed for Highway 80. And people come in there now and want to put this and that. We drill down, no, you're not going to put this on Highway 80. This is one of our future gold mine when it comes to economic development. And my colleagues go right along with me. They understand it. Now, Metro and the Gulf
Grand Gulf
situation
Fund, yes.
for financing, it's for, from my understanding, if something happens at the plant, that they would have means of moving those people out of that phase. And so it was more for the highway than for a building, buildings. So we eventually, they got $100-some thousand set aside. What's happening to it?
Okay.
You got to
All right.
have a plan. You know, I believe in a plan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Ridgely.
All right, thank you. First of all, it's not only the front of the metro, it's the back. So the whole area needs to be revamped from the infrastructure. Even driving around the metro, back in the back, grass growing, back with the old Home Depot and all that. So the whole area together, you got to, first of all, do something with the roads. And second of all, malls, that business model is over with. Everybody's shopping online. So you have to do something with that area that attracts, there's another attraction to the ward. So either it's working with the current owner with bringing maybe a golf cart or something inside of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Going to stay in that area just for another question for right now. And Mr. Hartley, we'll begin this round with you. So we talked about the area around the zoo, but Ward 5 as a whole, what would you do to address the blighted properties as a whole, all of the abandoned houses that's in Ward 5? And this is a two-part question. So what would you do to address the blighted property, the abandoned homes in Ward 5? And then the second part of the question is, how would you address the slumlords that own property in Ward 5?
Okay. To answer the first question, how do you address the abandoned properties? First of all, doing nothing is not a solution. Blight is like a cancer. It'll spread. Once it gets on your street and one house become affected, another house become affected, sooner or later, the entire street become affected. These abandoned houses become havens for drugs. Homeless folks build fires in them. A lot of them get burned down. They become an eyesore. They reduce the neighbors' property values. They're a problem. They're a problem up in Nimitz. They're a problem right behind us here at Washington Addition, where you don't see any taxpayers' dollars over there. You know, you have trash and so forth. So blight in itself spreads. I've done a study on it with the Jackson Association of Neighborhoods. I've given recommendations, and we're constantly fighting that, and including volunteering to cut yards and help resolve the issue. A lot of our taxpayers are paying for that property to get cleaned up. One thing we have to do is we have to stop protecting the rights of people who go off and leave it, okay? We have to work with communities, community leaders. They need to see if, and our elders can contact those folks, see if they can contact them and just ask them for a letter of permission to go in there and do something. Folks' livelihoods are at stake. Their property values are at stake. They wake up every morning, look out the door, and they're seeing this abandoned, grown-up property, and no one has done anything about it for years. We have to act. I would use those connections with the community to get it done. They are very motivated. The other issue, I would work through zoning and making sure that they have a good, healthy budget.
All right, Mr. Hartley, thank you very much. Mr. Jones.
Yes, thank you. I will use my experience as in the financial services industry to work with HUD and some other federal governmental agencies to assist low to moderate income housing to be able to be brought in. Because again, once we tear out something, we've got to have something put back in place to ensure that it's been able to meet the needs of our city. We have some serious sales tax issues, and one way we can assist that is looking at affordable housing ways to ensure that families are brought in and put in place. Next thing, again, I would advocate that we really put some time into our code enforcement area. We have to ensure that the standards that the city has put in place through laws and so on is carried out and fulfilled. We cannot assist a community if the codes are not being maintained. Again, that helps stabilize and give value to homes, and as well as things begin to go up. That's very, very critical. The other piece there is we will work to ensure that we're putting the effort in place to make sure that businesses understand that from an economic standpoint that we have vibrant neighborhoods and communities to ensure they're able to come in and hire some of our locals to be able to work. That concurrently will go in to work with our school system to ensure that they're meeting the standard. Because again, as we have good, strong schools, we will have good, strong neighborhoods, and we will have good, strong, high-paying jobs. The other piece there is that we are, again, in a situation where we do have housing stock, that we do have homes that need to be torn down. But as we look at some other parts of the city, for instance, down off Cohee Street, we see some of those homes that are now being revitalized and that are able to, and being occupied. Some of those that are beyond repair have been torn down. And we can take that same model and bring it to Ward 5, as it is already, and start using some of the same techniques to ensure that we're growing our communities. We have the zoo. And we have Zoo Area Progressive Partnership out there advocating for the zoo. So those are some key points that we can bring into place. And again, because of my background experience in that space, we're able to do that.
All right, Mr. Jones, thank you. Mr. Tillman.
Abandoned houses, why are they abandoned? Most of them were purchased since the 60s by us. The white flag, we bought them. Then we've had a number of economic meltdowns. People, like we're going through this little crisis now, people's getting behind. Then some had those what we call balloon notes. Start off paying $400 a month note, you end up with $800. Couldn't afford them. Then when job loss, couldn't afford them. So they lost these houses. Then, this is the kicker now. There's a lot of us right now, even black investors. If we could get the finance, we would buy those houses. A lot of them could be saved. So that's a complex problem. Financing, trusting black investors, trusting black homeowners. A lot of people, on keeping your file, I put the foreclosure list there. People are trying to buy those houses. But when they go to the bank, you know the story. That's when these houses are sitting there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Ridgely.
All right. A lot of abandoned houses in West Jackson are abandoned because of property taxes. So I want to teach people how they can go on the Secretary of State, find a property. They don't need to go get no loan, a few $100s, and buy them and do something with them. But a lot of people are not educated on how to do that. A lot of people want to get into it. So I want to set up something where we teach people how to buy those properties and do something with them. Second of all, we have to put a limit on the churches who buy property, because what happens is they buy property, but they don't have to pay property tax, and we're not getting their revenue back, and they don't really do anything with the property. And with the landlords, we have to do a background check on them. If they just around here buying up, if they have a history of just buying up and just slumming, they shouldn't be able to buy anymore.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, I was listening to the mayor address that at a meeting that we had, and he was saying that not that a lot of abandoned houses would not be torn down or whatever, but he was saying there's so much red tape and so much paperwork. I want the people to know that as well. And sure, as they're saying, it costs money. But so I think it has to be something to speed that up, to speed up the process of these houses being torn down and what can be done to them. And so we can revitalize those neighborhoods, as others have been on in the Ferris Street area and some other areas where there are beautiful homes there. It would be nice to have a plan. So feel I can be one who can put a plan together like that that can help us speed up the process of these abandoned homes wherever they can be torn down or revitalized.
All right, very good. You took a stab at that one first, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Jones, we'll start with you. You would think when you think about a city like Jackson, you would not necessarily classify Jackson as a city that has food deserts or that have food deserts. What do we do? Food deserts.
Oh, food
We have a lot of food deserts in Jackson. And we particularly have food deserts in Ward 5. And I have a question about the old Jackson Cash and Carry that sits empty. And understanding and knowing that food deserts exist specifically in Ward 5. How do you fix that, Mr. Jones?
Thank you. There are several institutions here that have financing dollars set aside for financing grocery stores, those things that help improve communities. We will, as a committee, council, look at those types of programs and work with those individuals who need to be grocers. Because again, not only we have the old Cash and Carry that's on one top of the hill, at the bottom of the hill you had the old New Deal. Those areas and stores such as that carry a community. Other pieces of areas, we need to educate and provide and make sure that we have conversations with our banks about some of the products and services that are needed specifically for our communities. Because again, they have interest too. So how do we talk about CRAs, Community Reinvestment Acts, and so on? That's where a bank, if it's in the city, they have to do business within that city to grow. Next piece of area is we need to take a conscious effort and start putting standards in place to ensure that our grocers understand what their role is, understand the importance of ensuring that our families have good quality selection of foods, vegetables, produce, etc. We need to make sure that they understand that we are not just a city of whatever. We need to know and make sure that our schools are understanding and teaching our students the importance of how to prepare and select good meals. We need to make sure that our families that are out there that are learning that process have the good organizations that are out there providing those services, that they are able to work within that. We also need to ensure that we are positioning our small businesses, of which I do economic development, to understand the importance of how to actually make sure your books are balanced and make sure that you are calibrated to ensure that you're able to have sustained operational costs in place, as well as understanding how to handle your supply chain. And so we need to look at that as a collective unit to make sure that our stores are available to be able to service the people that need it the most. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Jones, I want to just stay with you just for a second.
Yes.
You've used the word calibrate in almost every one of your responses. So do you think that there's a need to just reset everything?
I feel there's a need for us to definitely take a understanding of what calibration really means. Right now, we're out of balance. In other words, we're not all on the same page. I think that's obvious by some of the responses we get, some of the things that have come out. And we have to go in as a council, particularly this current city council, as well as leaders, as well as organizations, to really have a good conversation about what the real priorities are for our communities. Through my survey of our communities, food deserts is an issue there. But I've seen other visuals in my community, for instance, where I'm from, where there's a farmer that plants a garden every year that is able to provide greens to everybody in my community. He has the equipment to do that, though. The other piece there is that, yes, we have to, in some cases, do a reset and let's tear it up because that plan not working. But how do we ensure that what we have in place is being able to be implemented and executed? And so by calibration, we definitely need to sit down and have talk, get all on the same page, and everybody get back in their lane to ensure that we have the outcome that we're looking to have based on our collective effort.
Very good.
Off of coming around.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, Mr. Tillman, we'll go to you and redirect the question to food deserts that exist in Ward 5. Jackson Cash and Carry sits empty. The New Deal sits empty. And food deserts are prominent in Ward 5. How do you fix that?
Again, it's a big problem. At one point in time, we didn't even have a grocery store in Ward 5. You remember, in Western Plaza. Me and John Horn got together, and we finally got a grocery store. And it's sold to the people there now, but we still have a grocery store. Yeah, our people need food. I met with some people that looked at the old Home Depot. They didn't want me to mention that. But anyway, I'm meeting with people. A lot of farmers now have a lot of produce they call suckers, you know. Everybody wants a big, pretty tomato. But the little tomatoes are nice too. And so on and so on. And they have excess produce from time to time. And these people want a place in Jackson where they can bring it and just give it away. Now, we've done it at Metro Center. At one point in time, we've done it at St. James Church at one point in time. And they're getting all kind of produce. I don't like it. I think Ward 5 need one of the best grocery store chains you can find in any community. But again, it go back to investors, marketing. People look at they want a reasonable return on their money. And so they make marketing studies, and that's how they locate business here and there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Ridgely.
Yes. The grocery stores, period, we need to do some code enforcement. That's why they leave. You go to a grocery store, when those grocery stores was even open, you walk in, it's an armed security guard. You drive up the road maybe less than 20 miles, 15 minutes. So we got to do something with our enforcement to keep the stores here. As far as with the owners, they just let anything go. But we only got like 2 to 3 code enforcement, so we just got to get back on track with getting this thing back together in the area.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ridgely. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, definitely have to do something about the food deserts. You have to drive too far to get what you need. And so I think, too, as a community, we're going to have to support more where our stores are instead of this. I think this would encourage stores to stay first and foremost. I think we have to kind of get to the root of the problem of why they're not staying, and because they have to make money, and we have to understand that. And then again, they have to have what we need, you know, so a store wouldn't close. I think we have to concentrate on that a little bit more.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Hart.
Okay, 2 things there. One is supply and demand. The stores have to have a base of customers. Those customers generally draw from the community. As we lose our communities, the investors are less likely to come in and invest into stores, into any type of business. We have to get the crime under control, but we need to provide that steady base of consumers to come into the stores. Second thing, I believe in sustainability. I've been working for the last year right down the road here on a community garden, okay? And parts of it is developed already, but we anticipate other parts being developed. And one of the things about it is I put in that plan to ensure that we had greens year-round. It's been a staple of ours to eat, and you can have fresh vegetables year-round. And obviously, that's very good for us. The other thing is when we have community gardens, we also have an opportunity to educate our children. A lot of children don't know the process of growing food or harvesting food or preparing food. And that's a fundamental need that we have. So we have to do a better job of educating, developing gardens around schools, developing community gardens for folks to live off of, et cetera. But again, supply and demand. If we don't have a population, then investors in our grocery stores, they won't be there. And if they keep getting robbed, they're more apt to leave as well. So we have to fix crime as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hartley. Rebuttal, 1 minute.
It's another component to that. we as consumers and we as blacks, we hadn't learned how to invest and bring our own service to our own communities. I was so glad when Jackson State started the business school to teach us finance, investment, et cetera, et cetera. We should own our own grocery store. No ifs and ands about it. So we got a long ways to go. Right now, we're just talking about day. One day should be we. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tillman, rebuttal, Mr. Jones, 1 minute.
Yes. I feel that, first of all, we are very creative people. We are very rich people. We are very peculiar people. And we actually built Jackson State on our own backs, blood, sweat, and tears. But I haven't forgot, because I read my history, that there was one school down there in Lormer, Mississippi that actually was the only high school available in the early days before Jim Crow. So when we talk about those opportunities, they are already here. In terms of supply and demand, we create our demand because there is a supply. We also understand, too, that the same dollars raised across that river over there is the same dollar raised right here in this city. And we have to take charge in understanding that we are the best, that we have everything that we need to do what we need to do, and stop going on the perception of we are not ready or prepared. That burns me up to hear that in the situation we find ourselves in right now as a city.
I agree.
We are ready to do what we need to do, and it's time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We appreciate that. Speaking of we, I'm glad you all are using the word we. So we noticed that there's economic development happening in all parts of Jackson. Not quite as much, if any at all, in West Jackson.
Right.
And the question then becomes, and especially when you talked about supply and demand originally, the question then becomes, how do we increase the rooftops in West Jackson? How do you sell West Jackson to get folk to move back to West Jackson? How do we increase the rooftops? Mr. Tillman.
Number one, you got to have investors. That's who built rooftop. Right now, because of I hate to say it, people get to talking about low income. That hurts us. All apartments, low income. Hood houses, low income. So we got to figure out how to bring some new, tear down some of these areas that flatten them out, like over there, cross Capitol Street, Denver Street, and over there, where only a few houses left. We started the Bon Air project, and for some reason, Hood put a clamp on because they weren't building the houses right. So we've hurt ourselves quite a bit. That whole area from the Boys Club all the way to the graveyard is supposed to be brand new houses. But we messed it up.
All right. Mr. Tillman, dig a little deeper. How did we mess that up? What do you mean by that?
From what I can understand, we didn't have in place oversight person to make sure they were building those
And when you
homes
say
right.
we not having oversight, you mean the city?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Part of your responsibility.
Right, part of the city responsibility.
Okay.
Right. And they built 2 or 3 houses, and immediately people started having problems. Plumbing and all that. HUD came in, closed it down.
You have a rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay. 1 minute for a rebuttal. You have a rebuttal? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. I'm sorry.
Now,
Go.
during all this time, what were you doing to help stop all this? at the city council.
So that's out of order. You don't get to ask the candidate question. That's
Oh,
my
okay.
job.
I'm
So
sorry.
if you wanna offer an explanation, feel free to do that.
It's stated we, but Ward 5, if you driving around and seeing everything every day, constantly, he said 3 terms, step up to bat and do something. Stop putting the blank. You have to do something. That's one reason I jumped in this thing, because I got tired of asking around.
All right, very good. And we'll stay right there with you, Mr. Ridgely, and give you an opportunity to answer the original question
Okay.
About increasing rooftops.
Well, me being a business owner myself in the area, to get the people to come, first of all, it has to make sense. So if you show them it's profitable and give them a good business plan to follow, they'll come. But you also can't, with the roads, every 4 years we have the same problem, or every election cycle. You have to stop hiring the cheapest contractor to come in the area to do patch-up work. You just got to stop doing this. And also, you hiring the cheapest of the cheap to do the work, and we're not enforcing. You'll see an 18-wheeler drive down Capitol. If you go to Madison, you'll never see no big trucks drive through the city like that. You using the cheapest of the cheap, then you're not enforcing the rules, and it gets torn up, and we right back again. So we just gotta basically stop letting your friends. We just gotta do better.
All right, Mr. Ridgely, thank you very much. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, we can raise the rooftop. We can do better. We can improve and have better attraction. We can revitalize our neighborhoods and make them more interesting. I look at Madison. I was in the moving business 25 years. I saw large neighborhoods. Truthfully, I saw neighborhoods with $1 million homes, truthfully. $500,000 homes. And so I agree with the gentleman that we got to stop going low income, and we just got to look for better. I know that maybe economically where they are in Madison may be better, but we can do that in Mississippi. I was looking at Jackson State, how they hired the coach that brings the people, he attracts people in. So we're going to have to come up with a better plan for Ward 5 in our city to make it more attractive. Truthfully, we need a Disney World. I'm going to just say something like that. We need some main attraction where people can, something that can really catch people's attention as the Metro Center used to do. We just got to come up with a better plan that we're going to make Jackson more attractive for the people. I believe I'm the one to do that, Adam Sanders.
Mr. Sanders, tell me about your comment about low income. Dig a little deeper there for me.
Well, I was just saying a lot of times low-income housing sometimes replaces some of the torn down homes or something like that. I think we kind of got to get away from that because we want to attract the kind of people that we want to be in these neighborhoods or these professionals, business owners and so forth. So we just got to have a better plan.
And I was going to ask Mr. Tillman there, but since you said it as well, I'll stay with you on that. Do you not think that low-income individuals deserve sustainable housing?
Yeah. Well, absolutely, absolutely. But I just don't feel that should be our main focus. When we can do better, we can look for more. We want to attract more.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you think that, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, certainly, certainly. In its place, but not main focus.
Gotcha. And so then you think that a Disney World should be brought to Ward 5?
Oh well, absolutely, certainly. Okay. Something that's as attractive. You know, something people really drive to Mississippi for. Something that would even bring more jobs like that. Oh yes, certainly.
Right. Very good, Mr. Hartley.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to explain what sold me to West Jackson. And I never considered living in any other part of Jackson. It was the charming houses. Everyone are individually unique and special and great in their own way. That's something you don't see as rare. The people are kind. The people are real. In the late 90s, my Toyota broke down at the corner of Ellis and Robinson. An elderly couple pushed my car out of the way, helped me push it out of the way, and they took me over to AutoZone to get another battery. Okay, and I'm thinking, how special is that? This is the place right here. But what doesn't sell West Jackson and Jackson is having a national, having a water crisis that's broadcast on national news. We have to get leadership in there that can fix those type issues. That will not sell Jackson or West Jackson. We also need to clean up our communities. That will entice people to move in. We need to work with crime, and I have some initiatives about crime. Also, we need to hold everyone accountable for results. Some of the people I speak with now, they complain that they're not just getting the basic government services. Some of them don't even know who to call to get the services. They don't know who represent them, and some doesn't know what ward they're in. That's a problem. We need to pull together. We need to strengthen our communities. We need to stabilize the ones that aren't, and we need to build up. They're in turn getting more people in. And West Jackson will sell itself if we do that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hartley. Mr. Jones.
Thank you so much. Homeownership, in my experience of being a former housing person, understanding it as a lender, is very, very important. We definitely need quality programs that are out there, so my conversation would be worked through Mississippi Home Court to ensure to see exactly what programs are out there to assist our low to moderate income individuals move in. The other thing there is, again, having conversations with our bankers to see exactly what their thoughts are in terms of coming up with programs that speak specifically for Ward 5. Other pieces there are how do we use current programs that are out there for a person to buy a home and then turn around, fix it up, and they to move in. That includes new carpet, new floor, and new appliances, et cetera. Those programs are already out there on the books. We have to do that. Other piece of that is ensuring that we, as a council, we, as the mayor's office, have calibrated, in other words, got on the same page as Jackson Public Schools to ensure our schools are performing, not only here in Ward 5, but across the city. Because, again, one thing I do know is if you have a performing school, a parent gonna move to where their school is performing at. And understand that quality schools dictate the crime level. Crime level does not dictate the quality of a school. Other piece of that is we have to understand that business owners and businesses, economic development is centered around opportunities for growing their market. And by business coming in and we're able to graduate students who are certified in electrical, plumbing, et cetera, they have opportunities, one, to start gainful employment. Those are jobs that the city needs at every stage and every level. The other piece of that is we'll continue to advocate with our housing, urban development to ensure that we have that quality here, using our financial institutions that are here that have purposed themselves for providing that level of service to our community, to our residents. Thank you.
All right, very good. Mr. Tim, did you answer that question? Yes, no?
Yeah, we talked about.
Okay, so you got a rebuttal. Okay.
But may I share something?
Yes, sir. 1 minute rebuttal.
Things just don't happen. You've got to have some activists or lobbyists to be out there pushing. We got a new bank right here in Western Plaza. I sat down with those people. I took a tour of West Jackson with them. That's how we got that bank. We got Bank Go South right up here. And I talked to them about these abandoned houses that people need some financing. We need a bank that's going to be sensitive to the neighborhood. Don't come over in our neighborhood and say you can't make this type of loan. We're not going to get any place. Now, I'm waiting to see how they're going to run that bank.
Mr. Jones, rebuttal, 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. You're exactly right. We have to have conversations with our bankers. But me being a former banker and understanding the conversation that bankers have and understanding the process, it's incumbent upon us to have those needs already out front, because they have to meet certain needs as well. The question I'll ask is, why are you moving here? What in your plan has asked you to move here? And the second thing the bank he mentioned, of course, now those city checks are being processed in another state. Those are dollars that are leaving our city. The other piece there is we have to understand the importance of making those conversations very structured, very intent to ensure that bank is growing our community, because that's what a banker does. They already know the statistics of the area. They already know the quality of the level of the unbanked individuals in that space. In other words, the ones who don't have an account. Because again, he mentioned one bank opened up, but we got 10 check cashing places. Which is building the best equity for our communities? Those are the questions we have to have when we talk to our financial institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Did you get an opportunity to answer that question?
Yes.
All right, very good. Listen, we're going to stay right there for one more second, and then we'll use our remaining few minutes to talk about, I know, all of your favorite subject, and that is crime. Here's a question from a constituent in your ward. We are seeing more and more homeless white people, young people, and mentally ill people in our community. What is your plan to stop the human dumping in Ward 5? Mr. Sanders, we'll begin with you and work our way down.
Good question. Crime is a serious situation in this city, and I'm excited that I'm actually working with the Healing of the City Coalition. They have a plan to help revitalize and to set up, I guess, what we would call, in a sense, a crime prevention center to target some of our youth and young people to cover things such as parenting classes and other classes that they're actually setting up. We're kind of working on that now to work along with the mayor. And the person that's actually in charge of it, he's actually done prison ministry and things like that. And of course, homeless, that is a great situation. So I'm all for that because, for one thing, I think the mind of people have to be revitalized. I think one thing that causes crime is people have lost respect.
So the question is not crime now, and so I'm conflicted by your response in terms of what you're all for. Let me repeat the question for you.
All right.
We are seeing more and more homeless white people,
homeless,
young people, and mentally ill people in our community. What is your plan to stop the human dumping in Ward 5? That's the question.
Human dumping, okay. All right, okay, well, yeah, yes. Well, there again, there has to be some revitalization of the minds of the people because, you know, people maybe they feel like they're less fortunate or less important. I think we can encourage people to move on in their lives and that they can be successful. They can come to Jackson State, places like this, and they can revitalize themselves and get good jobs in a community where they would feel, you know, in place. And so those lives don't have to be wasted. There has to be something to encourage them to go ahead on and go on.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Hartley.
Concerning drop-offs in our city, that has increasingly become a bigger and bigger problem. Folks are dropped off at our bus station. They wander up to get free meals up around Poindexter. A lot of times they're dropping litter and other stuff along the path. We need to make intermunicipal agreements with some of these other towns. They need to understand that don't drop off folks in our community. We're not a repository for your problems. Okay, we're dealing with our own, and that's fine. And we have organizations and nonprofits to do that. But we have to make it clear through meetings, memos, et cetera, that we all agree that, hey, this is not a drop-off spot. Okay, these folks, a lot of them, they're not paying taxes. A lot of times they're wandering through our neighborhoods. In some cases, they're exposing themselves and causing other crimes, wandering into vacant properties, et cetera. We need to look at that problem very, very carefully and prevent drop-offs. We also need to work with mental health professionals to get them the care that they actually need. We need to work with our mental health professionals, need to work with the police department. A lot of folks that are mentally ill, mentally challenged. They go into conflicts with the police. So the police need to be prepared to deal with those in a humane way. We need to work with our churches, et cetera. There's a lot of work to do for that population, and we need to start it. And we need to start that conversation, and we need to do it now.
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. Mr. Jones.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to be a little bit more inclusive. You mentioned white, and it's kind of exclusive. We see all these types of individuals walking and around. We will have to ensure that we are working together, one, through code enforcement, because again, several buildings that are left empty. I know on Highway 80, there's several buildings that I knew someone was living in an abandoned building. However, no code enforcement over there to ensure that those individuals are directed to some resource or some help. Next thing is we have to work with our universities. There's an excellent social work program here, Jackson State, as well as a PhD program in public health here at this school. How do we begin to work together to come up with a plan to ensure that we are addressing this issue that is really hollowing out the positives of our community? The other thing there is how do we begin to work with and actually use and advocate the Hines Behavioral Health, for instance, for example, is out doing what they do. How are we measuring that? What questions are we asking? How are we allowing the UMCs, the Merit Healths, and as well as the St. Dominic's and all those other clinics around here and the other spaces, what are you doing to assist us to come up with a strategic plan to address this that's not started right now? Then what are we using and what are we doing as a community to ensure that we are ushering those individuals along? Because again, not only are they occupying buildings, but next thing you know, that building has been burnt down or that house has been burnt down. So now there's a piece of property that could have perhaps been reoccupied that's now not available to go back on the tax roll. Then how are we ensuring that these individuals have the quote-unquote thought that they can actually come be dropped off in the city of Jackson? How do we change that narrative and put the appropriate narrative out there? If you want help, go to City of Jackson. Because we have those programs already set up. We have the facilities to assist those individuals. And we have all these agencies around here that are purpose for that to provide those level of guidance and to assist those individuals. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Tillman.
I think the question was, how do we stop human dumping in Jackson?
In Ward 5.
In Ward 5. And that's a big question. We've tried several times and got sued. It's going to have to be a legislative, and we've gone to them, but we hadn't gotten any place so far. Because when they closed down the state hospital, that's when we really started seeing it. And then we are told again it's not all mentally challenging people. Some of them are people that being paroled, some are being in prison a long period of time. Around 600 I don't like to call my people prisoners and all that. But anyway, about 600 people released back in the Jackson community each year in the community. And with Stewart being where it is, then they eat there and they stay around the community where they can get food. And and we've been trying. We tried to get grants to build a facility to try to accommodate them. Some of them are transit, they on the move, but some of them just stay where they can get some assistance. It's a problem.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Ridgely.
Yes. What you have to do, the main reason people dump off, because it's the main spot. That's the only spot they know. So what we need to do, we need to build some more shelters, because some people just down on their luck. We got some old vets, and another stew pot type light thing throughout the city, not just in Ward 5, but Ward 4, 3, 2, all over the city to house them so they can get bath, shower, and also have some mental health folks there or somebody who can lead them in the direction to go get some help.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Rebuttal, Mr. Harley, 1 minute.
Yes, one of the things that I hear is from neighborhood leaders. They're impacted by this group, and there seems to be no relief. Again, if we're trying to build and stabilize our communities, we have to focus on that as an issue as well. And I get plenty of complaints working with the Jackson Association of Neighborhoods that, hey, they're in the spaces, they're children, adults, they can't walk in certain areas because of this population. We have to work with neighborhoods to help control this issue and to streamline the path of where they're going and are not going. And I don't really totally agree that we just need more facilities. We need to decrease the number.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to spend our remaining few minutes talking about crime now. That's a hot button issue, and I know all of you are dying to share your thoughts about crime. So 36 homicides, and depending on the way JPD counts them, could really be 37 based on my knowledge. They're not necessarily counting one homicide that occurred at the M-Bar. My question is, when you are elected councilman for Ward 5, would you lead a conversation about changing police chiefs? Would you lead that conversation, or are you satisfied with the work of the current police chief in Jackson? Mr. Ridgely, let's start with you, and we'll work our way back down.
All right. Would it go with the police chief? I would do internal hiring. I go to the officers and ask them who do they think with the ranks, how they been doing, and we hire from inside and go from there because they know the area better, they know what's going on.
So the question is, would you lead a conversation about getting rid of this police chief?
I have to see I'll be open to see what all he's done and just read other resumes also and go from there.
All right, very good. Mr. Tillman.
There's already been some conversations. I can't tell you the details, but that's been ongoing even now. So that's all I can say.
Can you tell us your position
My position?
in those conversations?
Well, my position is look at all the options. What are we providing with all the resources he needs to do the job? Are we giving him the money to hire the number of police he really needs? Are we equipping the training facilities? Are we hiring the number of detectives that know what's going on? We need to know what's going on in this city. Who's causing all these problems? So we need an intelligence officer. We don't have all of that. We need to send some people to the FBI training academy that's trained to look at criminal activities in your community and who causes them. It's not just the police chief himself. It's all what I'm talking about. All this got to come together.
Okay, and I want to stay there because you guys voted to freeze 50 positions with the Jackson Police Department. What was your vote, especially given that you think they need more? You know, they're understaffed, and so the decision was made to freeze 50 positions within the department. Where do you stand, and how did you vote?
No, we didn't have to vote on that. The police chief, from what I can understand, they froze those positions to try to buy additional equipment like the body cams and the automobile, the cab, whatever they call it, cams. We didn't have all
The body cameras.
Yeah, right. We didn't have all that at the time, and they wanted the cameras in the community. that would assist them in dealing with the crime situation. So that's the reason they were froze, I
Gotcha.
understand.
Gotcha. All right, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. First, the top of mind for me, or what's the most important to me is that we know that there's two things that is not going on: serving and protecting as a consensus. My role would be, as part of collective, would be to sit down and have that conversation in a way to find out exactly what has taken place, as stated, where are we, what needs are there, and how do we work to get the necessary resources there. We understand, too, that we have to look at how are we getting the best and brightest. Are we getting the best and brightest? How do we work with our local agencies, law enforcement agencies, or judicial system to pick out the best and brightest to assist the carrying it out? Next, as a group still, in terms of the council, what priorities and what legislation we need to put in place to ensure that we are protecting our city? What do we do to ensure that our citizens feel very comfortable, as well as what do we do to ensure that our police chiefs feel that he's being supported by the council?
Okay.
We will work.
I want to just redirect you to the original question, and we got to get to personnel and the lower level stuff. But the original question is about the police chief.
Oh, yes,
and
thank
your
you.
level of confidence. And on day one, would you lead a conversation about his ability or lack thereof in terms of leading that department?
Again, and thank you so much for getting me back on track there. I will most definitely will have to look at and sit down and have conversations based on information I do not have a privy to or in hand right now to ensure that I'm making a quality, well-informed decision. But again, a most important factor at the top of mind is making sure that we're serving and protecting our citizens. And that's one thing that's a non-negotiable from my perspective.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Harlan.
Regarding the police chief, again, that need to be evaluated based on their performance, statistics, et cetera. But one thing I'm in favor of having as a police chief, one that understands the community support is vital to their duties. Having said that, what I mean is this. Oftentimes you hear JPD needs your help, okay? If you don't know them and they're just zooming by your house, how are you supposed to build a relationship to help? It's a community issue. I would enhance the community program, the community joint program where the community works intensely with the police. We have a program called COPS. It's a national program and it works. But it can't work if the community leaders are coming there and they're hearing about everything else but strategies on how to prevent crimes. They have to be able to come there and, first of all, get a picture of what's happening in their neighborhoods, and secondly, get strategies on how to meet those challenges. Okay. The answer again, this is some of the things that I would expect in a police chief, and if they're not delivering that community-oriented program that support the police in the community, then they're shooting without bullets, so to speak. Another thing I would do is have a police chief that closes that revolving door at the academies. We're losing police officers there. Another thing is how about putting some of the police officers in some of the abandoned houses, upgrade those houses and have a presence in every community. Those are some of the things I would expect the police chief to do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hartling. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, I would certainly not lead a conversation on getting rid of the police, but try to work with him. I still think, and I'm actually doing that right now. I'm on a committee where we actually working close with the chief, and I've got a chance to hear his side of some things. And I think it's going to be a joint effort. It's just crime is just going to be an effort that everybody is going to have to get involved in. We're not going to be where we can point a finger. I can say that, but we're going to have to do something. That's why I was talking about crime centers. I would encourage schools to have something that talks about crime prevention. You talk about fire prevention. This is just a new day. We have a lot of things that's happening now that we're facing things that now that never happened before, crimes that have never happened before. I talked about the crime center where some to close down schools or something like that. Maybe people could be able to come. So I would definitely, and I am definitely supporting the chief. And I want to address something else if I could.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about slum lords. Somebody sent me a message, and I was glad they did. And I want to say that abandoned houses, I don't think all of them we can call them a slum lord, because there are really
Well, you don't
people.
call a house a slumlord.
Okay,
A slumlord
okay.
is referred to as a person.
Yeah, I know. I want to say that. That's what I was going to say, that there are really some people that economically, I'm sure they would love to fix their house. Now, I know some people that would love to fix up their properties, and sometimes we know properties do deteriorate. It happens. Okay, but it can cost as much to fix a house as it could to buy a house, in a sense, almost. So I think there has to be some program where maybe we can find eligible people who are serious about their property. That's all I'm saying, and I believe we could do something about that as a city.
All right, very
That's all
good.
I want to say. Adam Sanders, Ward 5.
All right, Mr. Sanders, thank you very much. You reminded me of a saying that my grandmother used to say, people are dying that have never died before.
There you go.
All right, so, Mr. Tillman, rebuttal, 1 minute.
If we separate out the different types of crime, you got street crime, and then you got these crimes, domestic crime, people inside their house. But when we say let's lump all of them together, it's unfair. And they say the police chief can stop a girlfriend, boyfriend from killing each other, a brother and sister in their home. Ain't no way where you can stop that. So I would like to see it separate. The police are more or less involved in what goes on in the streets, not behind closed doors.
Okay. I don't think that issue has been raised, but I follow your point wholeheartedly. Listen, just 2 days ago, the council voted to give the Hinds County Sheriff's Office $500,000 to assist with the crime in Jackson. And I think if we are honest and transparent with ourselves, crime is a problem in this city. And the vote was 5-2, and though I got confused because they brought it back around and reopened it for discussion, got a little confused with your vote, Mr. Tillman. I'm starting this question with you. Got a little confused with your vote because when it was first brought up for a vote, the vote was actually 5-2, and you voted against it the first time. Hear me well. The vote was 5-2. And then they voted to bring the topic back up because Dr. Omari wanted to ask some questions and wanted to discuss the item again. And so at the conclusion of that discussion, when the vote happened, I didn't clearly understand your vote. When they voted, you didn't raise your hand either for it or against it. And by law, that's a vote of abstention. And legally and via definition, a vote of abstention is a vote for. Can you clarify your position on assisting JPD with the crime?
I'd be glad to. This has been ongoing, on and off the agenda for quite some time. It went to committee. We discussed it in committee. And I said, bring us a plan, a proposal, exactly how you're going to use the $500,000. I'll support it. We never got the plan. They wanted to vote it out of committee. Okay, we voted out of committee with the understanding that it has to go to the full council for consideration. And they said at that time, they would have developed a plan. But they never developed a plan. So therefore, we given the sheriff department $500,000, My last question, I believe, was how many sheriff officers are they going to hire? Nobody said a word for a moment there. And then Banks said 20. And I said, well, for how long? Long as the money lasts. You know, we're dealing with taxpayer money. We want some results. We want some accountability. You know, when the auditor come and check how we spend the taxpayers' money, what is he gonna say? We just gave somebody a blank check. I didn't vote.
The second time.
I didn't vote.
The first time you voted against it. The second time you didn't
I
vote.
voted against because we didn't have a plan. The second time, I didn't vote, period. You're right. I didn't hold up my hand. I didn't say anything. I didn't
You
vote,
said
period.
a lot, but you did. But when it came to the
Because
vote,
I told him,
you didn't
bring
vote.
me a plan, you got my support.
All right, and to close out with you on this one, were you as vocal with James Davis with his incomplete plan when he brought before y'all, and when he didn't show up at the follow-up meeting, were you this vocal with this chief?
No, I wasn't that vocal. He presented a plan.
A plan with no measurable timelines or outcomes.
Also, when we go to sit as a body discussing, we said bring a plan. Now, if we don't detail it out, how would you? I think the police chief, with his staff, he got a good proposal writer that bring in money that know how to write proposals and write plans. Now, they might have been a little off in the judgment, but they always went back. Every time they had a rejection when he came before the council, they went back and said, give us precisely what you want, and we bring back, and they did it every time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tillman. Mr. Rizzo, we got to go to you about the $500,000 that the council voted to give the sheriff's department. Do you support that? If so, why?
No, I don't. I believe you need to take care of your officers who already are out here. They underpaid, and the morale is down. So when you already not paying them anything, basically they don't care for the most part. So you could have used that money in some pay raises or some incentives to your officers to get them going.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Sanders, do you support the $500,000 given to the Hinds County Sheriff's Office to assist with the rise in crime? If so, why? If not, why not?
No, and I repeat the same, that the Jackson officers should be given more raises, trained more, other opportunities like that, anything that's going to enhance the police department in this area, and so that others would even want to be policemen, that they can see that changes are being made, that they're offered more. No, I would certainly not want to take care of Jackson first.
Okay. Mr. Hartley.
Two different views on that. One is that JPD, all our officers deserve pay, better pay, and they also deserve the trust and confidence of their communities. We need to know them. Again, that's why I mentioned about the community-oriented policing. It's important that we know them so we can support them. They'll be our neighbors. It's important. Secondly, if, I've been robbed, folks stealing stuff off my porch, folks jumping my fence, 5 times in the last 4 years. I've stood around a house with neighbors as we prayed after one of the neighbors was killed involving drugs. Some of those times, I wouldn't care who respond. So I do believe that we need to do everything we can to support our JPD police. But there are some folks out there that believe that, hey, they want someone that's going to really serve and protect us.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. without having all the information or details within the conversation to know exactly what budget that's going to come from, exactly knowing which programs or that are already out there would go unfunded, particularly in that case there, I would need to know that. The other piece there is that exactly how long would this go for? How long would this support needed? Because again, as we know, we're down in terms of police officers. And so would this be a boost to bring in additional support to help? Then I would be, in favor of that. If we have not gotten a plan together to show where we have individuals coming in. The other piece there is I agree that we have to make sure that we're supporting our current officers that are out there now. And what are we doing to support them? I'm sure they are working longer hours, being shorthanded. They're probably over, stressed in terms of the number of crimes they're having to walk up on and put focus to. So we would have to look at this with more information to see exactly how is it really impacting the budget and how is that positioning us going long term in terms of where we are, because we are facing dire needs, and at the end of the day, we have two non-negotiables. That is to serve, and then that is to protect.
All right, very good. Rebuttal, 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that. Also, we have to get away from, because this is a Band-Aid, we have to get away from this. People are scared of Hinds County, Madison County, Pearl, and Jackson is just a joke. JPD is a joke. So we have to get their respect level back to the force also, where people will be like, well, I can't do that in Madison, now you can't do that in Jackson either. So
Okay. All right, so gentlemen, just for a point of clarity, as we close tonight, this $500,000 was allocated to the Hinds County Sheriff's Office because of the severe shortage within our police department. If you know your issues as relates to JPD, you would recognize that officers, they were voted a raise, so they got a raise. And if you understand the elements of crime, then you know that visibility is one of the greatest deterrents of crime, and I think that's why they voted for this. And I think, Mr. Tillman, can you answer what fund is it coming from? They said it, and I don't remember. What fund is this $500,000 coming from?
It was just said the rainy day fund.
Rainy day fund. All right, guys, we are out of time. I would love to spit.
Better known as the fund balance.
Fund balance, that's what they use, yes.
And from my understanding with their raise, it was new officers, not the old officers who got a raise.
Right, incoming classes, right? There were questions about veteran officers not receiving raises.
Let me
So we're out of time, Mr. Tillman. I think we could spend a whole lot more time on crime if we had, but we're out of time. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to do a 1-minute closing as we prepare to say good night. Mr. Sanders, we'll begin with you.
Again, so thankful to be here. Again, I say I'm Adam Sanders, Ward 5, looking forward to serving the community, serving the people, being the voice for the people looking to make changes, to see changes in crime infrastructure, our area that we live in, to make it more attractive. Vote for me April 6th. Vote for me, Adam Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Hartley.
Vote for me, Vernon Hartley, April 6th. I need to get that in there because a lot of times I forget. But what I'd like the voters to know is this: I hear you. You're not asking for big, grandiose plans. You're asking for basic government services. The people I talk with, they feel disconnected from their government. What I want to do is I want to restore that connection in every way. Full integrity, full transparency, and always going towards results. And again, vote for Vernon Hartley, Ward 5, City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I am from Ward 5, born and raised. I work and live in Ward 5 daily. I am Ricky Jones, son of Ward 5, born and raised. I am here to champion your causes. I am here to champion and advocate for your needs. I am here to take the voice back to the table. But I'm also wide-eyed open enough to understand that if I do run across a challenge, I will come get you. And I do expect you to come go down there with me. Because again, Ward 5 has been neglected. Ward 5 has not gotten its share of what it needs to be prosperous. we will make a difference. We will see a difference in 4 years. And my pledge is, if you haven't seen a difference in 4 years, please vote me out. Please vote me out. Again, my name is Ricky Jones. I'm asking for your vote on April the 6th. Ricky Jones, bringing back pride in Ward 5. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, thank you. Mr. Tillman.
I would ask you to look at the Jackson Advocate. It would show you all the things I have done for this ward over a period of time. I don't have 2 minutes to do that, but I would say I am committed to this ward. I love this ward. I love the people of this ward. I know this ward. I cherish it. I go around weekly in my ward. People say, "Tim, where do you get all the energy?" And I said, well, maybe God has blessed me. So I got the best attendance of any council person on the city council. And you can check that out. I'm there for the people.
All right, Mr. Tillman, thank you very much. Mr. Ridgely, you get to close
Okay,
us out.
yes, Ward 5, the people who actually out in the streets, not in the house who don't know what's going on. We know around each election time, we tired of just trying to fix the streets and put Band-Aids. It's time the excuses is over with. We need some results. So I'm asking you April 6th, please vote for me, James Ridgely. Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate you engaging in this conversation. We heard that 2 hours was too long to do this type of forum, and I think we need more time, and we've spent 2 hours here tonight. But thank you very much to the voters of Ward 5. You've got a big decision to make on Tuesday, April the 6th. I pray that you make the right one. You go vote. Thank you very much. Good night.
And that's Charles Tillman.